this has to be the starting point of this book of yours. And it's like, I don't know that I can do that. I don't want to revisit it. So I went and I found my dad had saved all the newspaper clippings. And I got the ironing board out and I was ironing these newspaper clippings all flat and putting them in plastic, plastifying them and starting a timeline. And I have never cried so much in my entire life. As I was working, my glasses become little pools of tears. And it's like I had to reconnect with all of this. And in reconnecting with it, the whole story then got told. And it's like, did this really happen to me? So this was a story that happened to me when I was young, and we'd been set up by the Jehovah's Witnesses to be able to, they groomed us so that we knew what we needed to say, how we were supposed to conduct ourselves. Remember that everything that we did was supposed to be done to God. This was our gift to God, and our need to be faithful and loyal. And so here's a little kid, and I've always been a bit of a nerdy kid, a little boy, weedy boy with red hair and freckles and a white skin. Always kind of thought that you could, my skin was so pale that you could always see the internal organs shining through like a Natal gecko, and here is this kid who's thrust in front of this apartheid government and the machinery of this government, and not just the government itself, but the army, this mighty force, And then there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of conflict with other school friends of mine that have gone there. They the boys that went to the border, and they're the ones that are defending the country. And here I'm the one that feels kind of pedantic and selfish, saying, no, I'm not going to go on principle. So the story was a tough story for me, but one thing it did do for me is it changed me, and it changed the way I viewed life, and particularly authoritarian people. I don't like authority. I have always been a little bit angry and a bit of adverse against authority. So there was this kid, I go through it all. At the age of 27, I get disfellowshipped, excommunicated. I don't see my parents for another 30 years after that. My sister had a little child. He was just a few months old. I never saw him again until he was 36 or so. And the only time that I had contact with the family is when my dad was busy dying of cancer, and he said he wanted Tom to be by his side. And at that stage I could have said, screw you, don't want to do this, no more, I'm done with all of you. But I kind of thought, this is not about them, this is about me. What am I going to do? How am I going to deal with this? And then I just put my tail between my legs, ate humble pie, went and sat by my dad's side. And it was an Easter Monday, and he died around about 2 o'clock on Easter Monday. And as he was dying, he was just holding onto my hand. He didn't want to let anyone else's hand be with anyone else. He just wanted to be with me. And there he was, and he passed away. And in that moment, there was this almighty forgiveness. It was as though some light had entered into that room. And I know that him and I reconciled in that last time. And I wanted to write a book, but I wanted to write a book in honor of Ram Dass, because Ram Dass is a very profound spiritual teacher of mine. So my book was really to honor my journey and pass on to the next generation the baton, if you like, about spirituality and how people can find meaning, not in religion, but in something deeply spiritual, a connection with the universe. And when I started writing the book, I realized, well, I didn't even realize at the time, I omitted all of this army part. It was as if it had not existed. And I felt as though I was an imposter. I felt as though I've always felt like I was an imposter, young gay kid as a Jehovah's Witness, pleasing his mom, really doing what his mom wanted him to do. And kind of just, I'm this imposter, I shouldn't be here. The others are much more holy than I am. And then coming through all of that, and I don't want the glory of it. I don't want to be associated with this. And Dr. Peter Merrington was my editor, and he looked at the book, and somewhere towards the back of the book I'd mentioned a paragraph or two about the army. And he said, "No, Tom, this is an important story. This has to be the starting point of this book of yours." I was like, I don't know that I can do that. I don't want to revisit it. So I went and I found my dad had saved all the newspaper clippings. And I got the ironing board out and I was ironing these newspaper clippings all flat and putting them in plastic, plastifying them and starting a timeline. And I have never cried so much in my entire life. As I was working, my glasses become little pools of tears. And it's like I had to reconnect with all of this. And in reconnecting with it, the whole story then got told. And it's like, did this really happen to me? This is what I wanted to do is, having just set this aside as part of my history, I kind of then got a lot of attention because of it, because people read the book. And Hendrik came along. Hendrik was a hypnotherapist and studied a little bit not so much under my tutorship, but I'd met Hendrik through the hypnosis work that I do. And Hendrik then got a job assignment with a radio station, internet radio station, and Hendrik called me and said, "Listen, we want to put together a program, would you be interested in doing that?" And that's how I got to meet Hendrik. And so somewhere along the way what Hendrik did is he said to me, "That book of yours, I was deeply touched by that book. Would you allow me to tell that story? We'll make a video out of it, we'll make a movie out of it." I said, "Of course. I'm feeling a little bit awkward about it, but sure, if you want to do that, let's tell the story." And so we then went and tried to get funding for it and got a script done for the movie, but the movie sort of fell flat a little bit. We needed huge amounts of money to put all of that together. And afterwards I said to Hendrik, "So why don't I just read the book as an audio book?" And he says, "That's a good idea, but why don't we make it more of a drama?" Now, I'm of the ilk where Springbok Radio in South Africa was like my childhood thing, come back home from school and sit with my head under the radio listening to afternoon dramas and things. And I said, let's turn it into a drama. There's no such a thing that happens in South Africa. Instead of just making it a dry audio book, let's do the drama. And so Hendrik went away and wrote the script, which was just too moving, And then I had a look at that and I had to bring a little bit of the authenticity of what it's like to be a Jehovah's Witness and the sanctimoniousness of that, and my mom and her role and my dad's role to that script, and then we ended up with the script that we've got now. And what came of that was this podcast drama, this audio drama podcast. And having all the actors play these roles, I cannot tell you how difficult this is. I thought it was difficult taking a visit back to the old detention barracks site and walking around on that side. It's just demolished, it's just felt there. But walking around there, it was like, I'm here, this is where I spent all of this amount of time. But now that I'm in the recording studio and listening to the rehearsals and meeting the people and hearing them be my family and my aggressors, it's humbling, it's inspiring, it takes me back to all of that, and it's hard for me to do. But I think it's a story that needs to be told. And what Hendrik's done so beautifully with this is that it's not about me, it's not poor me, pity me. This is a vehicle, it's a story that we can use to liberate other people. We can liberate those that are marginalized, those that have aggressors, those that are under the thumb of the bully. And this story carries that hope. And I know that there is a whole journey forward for this. So I'm 71 years old now, and I'm having to face all of this at this stage in life. But it's a game changer for the next phase of my life, and I know that very much.